I paid $5 to hear that.
You are listening to the F11 Photography Podcast.
To the chasers of light, to the purveyors of pictures, to all of you listening around the world, this is the F11 Photography Podcast. I am your host, Kevin Deal, along with your other host, Mr. Brandon Gorrie.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the F11 Photography Podcast.
Yes, welcome. We're going to have a really great guest in the studio today. How have you been, Brandon?
So far, I've been good. I learned a recent issue last night is that I have black mold in my air vents.
That's not good. You should probably get rid of that.
I could be doing better, Kevin. I could be doing better.
Yeah, I myself had an interesting issue yesterday as I was sitting down to dinner with my in-laws. My phone rings. And I pick up my phone and I look at it and I'm like, okay, this is an 800 number, but it doesn't say spam, so I'll answer it. I don't know why I answered it. I probably had a couple drinks. That's probably why I answered it. And it's the guy from my bank saying, hey, your credit card, not your credit card, your debit card has been compromised. Have you been in like Fort Lauderdale? Which, of course, if you listen to this podcast, I was recently in Florida. So I was like, have you been to Fort Lauderdale in the last 3 months? I was like, I've been through Fort Lauderdale. And I start talking to the guy, and he's like asking me questions about my, have you ever had your card compromised before? And I was like, yeah, it happened. And, he identified himself with some really clever number at the beginning. Hey, my station number is blah, 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 blah. My name is this. So, he sounded legit. And, so anyway, I told him like, yeah, I had my card compromised before. He's like, well, the last time your card was compromised, did the funds actually get taken out of your account? And this is kind of the first red flag. I'm sitting here thinking like, well, if you're with the bank, wouldn't you know that? Couldn't you see that? And but for whatever reason, I stupidly was like, well, yeah, they were. And he's like, okay, well, they're gonna have to like change your account over, and we're gonna have to like reset your account and all that. And I'm like, what do you mean we're going to have to like reset my account? He's like, because your car's been compromised a couple of times. And so he's going through all this and he's like, all right, now let's go through the security question stuff. Like here, what's the answer to such and such security question? And I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. You have not given me any sort of electronic documentation that this charge in Fort Lauderdale has been declined or whatever. And so I would like to see proof of that before we proceed. And, can you show me some sort of proof that you're actually with my bank, calling me on a Saturday? And he's like, well, pick up your card, your debit card, and look on the back of it. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, what number do you see there? And I read off the number and I look at my phone and it's the same number. I'm like, okay. And so, but I'm also just, there's something interesting going on here. So I'm like, something seems off. So I was like, I'll tell you what, man, I'm at a restaurant right now and it's the weekend. And if somebody did steal my card, nothing is going to happen in the next hour. So I will sit down in front of my laptop an hour from now and I will go through these charges that are supposedly fraudulent. And I'll call the number on the back of the card that you're calling me from. So I get home. I call the number on the back of the card. I actually talk to somebody at the bank, and they say, Mr. Deal, there's no signs of fraudulent activity at all on your account. So the guy was trying to trick me into giving him the answers to my security questions so he could log into my account. So he must have I don't know if he had like a keystroke follower or something. I don't know how he found my account or tried to get in my account, but he tried to trick me into giving him my security question answers. And so, yeah, and I guess there's sophisticated technology out there right now where you can scramble caller ID and make it look like you're calling from a different number.
Yeah, that's what I've been sitting over here trying to figure out. That's crazy. And he just sounded like a regular old Joe Schmedlack, not like
He
a.
sounded like a dude from a bank. So interesting. And be careful out there, folks. I'm even though I had a couple drinks in me, I'm very glad and happy and patting myself on the back that I was like red flag 1, red flag 2. Everything seems kind of weird here. So anyway, be careful out there, folks. Let's talk about today's sponsor, Dehancer. So for those of you out there who love that film look but don't have that film money, or you're just not wanting to spend more money on film, the beautiful thing about Dehancer is that of all the programs out there that I've seen that emulate film, it actually does the best job. Yes, there's a lot of film simulations out there that emulate the colors and the tones of film. Where most emulations get it wrong is in emulating the physical characteristics, all the physics that happen when light hits an emulsion. So you have things like bloom, halation, you have the grain structure looking nice and organic. Dehancer does this, so check it out. It's really awesome. Any film stock you can think of, Ilford HP5, Kodak Portra, that's all in the Dehancer film program. They also have a Dehancer Pro where you can emulate motion picture films. So maybe you have the Fuji Eterna, some of those Kodak film stocks. Unfortunately, they don't have the new custom-made Oppenheimer monochrome that they made, the 70 millimeter, specifically for that film. But it is an awesome program. If you use the code Gorrie10 or use the link in the description below, you can get 10% off your copy of Dehancer today. So joining us, our interview today, Mr. Ethan Tran. How are you doing today, Ethan?
Doing great, doing great. How about y'all?
Oh, doing excellent.
Hot and sweaty. We're living it up.
Yeah, it's not 108 there in New York City, is it?
No, it's like 80, but everyone here thinks it's crazy hot, and it's wild.
Bless him.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the crazy thing. You got a city where everybody's so close together. That's why they have to build up, right? And maybe 80 feels more like 95 because everyone's so close.
yeah, but I don't, being from Texas, it's like, it's not. It feels pretty nice here. I'll be honest, compared to Texas, but I can see where they're coming from. The subway, when you're down there, it's like crazy.
How's the humidity in New York around this time?
I mean, it's something like Texas, I would say. Like, I can definitely still walk around and like be fine, but in Texas, if it's 100 degrees or 90 something, it's pretty hard to like walk because it's so humid.
Yeah, you're just stuck in basketball shorts here.
Yeah, it is funny. It is funny listening to people from the Northeast like, "Oh my God, it's 80! It's so crazy." I'm like, dude, when I wake up at like 6 in the morning to walk my dog in Texas, it's like already in the mid 80s, like because I have to get up at 6 in the morning because it's been like 108 here. Basically, if you look at your phone for Austin, like if you look at the last 3 weeks and the next 3 weeks, it's all triple digits, like every day.
Oh yeah,
and not even like, oh, we just hit 100. It's like 108, 106, 105. Like, ugh.
That's crazy.
This needs to end.
But y'all need to come to New York.
Yeah, well, I need to come to New York. I love it there. I haven't been there in years.
I will be in New York in October. Thank goodness. I'm looking forward to it.
Y'all should go get some lattes together or something.
Oh, yes, affogatos.
Well, welcome to the show. For all of you listening, Ethan is a digital creator, a man of many talents. And so we're going to go right to our first question, which is, how did you get on this journey to where you are today? Were you always a creative type? Did you discover it, I don't know, maybe in high school or something like that? What really spoke to you and told you that this is what I need to do?
A lot of things. I mean, I think from like an early age, I liked making videos, and usually they're just like dumb videos that I would make with my friends, or just like ones that I would make at home by myself in high school and put it on YouTube. And then mostly like school project stuff. And then I realized like from those school projects that I wanted to do like some other videos. But back then in high school, I didn't really know really what to do. And then I think it kind of started when I went on this trip to Arizona with my parents in high school. And I was like, what, like junior in high school or sophomore, I think junior. And like they had like the iPhone 7, and my dad, he had portrait mode. That was like the first portrait mode, I think, camera that Apple released back in the day, or it might have been like the second, I don't know, but somewhere in that like beginning range. And I thought it was crazy, like how you could do this like crazy background blur effect. I didn't even know what it was called back then, right? And I thought that was wild. So I was just like taking pictures on portrait mode of my parents, and like, and then it also like inspired me to just like take pictures of random stuff, just not even on portrait mode, on an iPhone. Then I got home. My dad tells me like he has an actual like DSLR. It was like this old Canon Rebel camera. I don't even know what it was. It was like silver, which was crazy. And then I just shot with that with like a 50 millimeter lens, and it was like a crop sensor, so it was pretty. It was like an 85 equivalent. And that's kind of how I got into it. And I was like taking portraits of people. I think kind of like usual stuff for that. And then going into college, I like got into Fujifilm, and I like bought my like first. I bought like the X100F before the craze, like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before
And, like,
people realized you could just buy an XE and slap a 23 millimeter on it, and it's the same thing, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And back then I got it for like 700 used, and now you can't get an X100F for like 1,000 used. Like it's like around 1,000 plus for that camera, and it's crazy. But anyways, like I got that, and I kind of changed the way I shot, and then I like really got into it, and like it really made me want to learn more about like creativity and like photo video. And then I got a job as like a social media manager / content creator for like a coffee company, and I was like, that's how my coffee addiction started. I started like drinking. Only had cold brew. It was a cold brew like tapped bike, so like they had a cold brew on tap. So it was like super strong. It was crazy. They would give me like a large cold brew, and I would just like take a picture of it, and then I would drink it, obviously, because I'm not gonna. I don't want to waste it, but then also it's like it like just tasted pretty good. Free oat milk, because like everything was. I mean, I don't know. It was like it was really cool because I was in college and I was like, I need caffeine. And then I like took a lot of pictures and videos of it, and it was like kind of like a practicing point for me. And that's kind of like how I started, because like I just always had my camera when I was like going to class. Then I'll just be like taking pictures throughout the day. And then I guess this is a long story, but I think it's like it's the only way I'm able to tell it, because it doesn't make sense any other way. And then from there, I got into advertising because my boss at that company was in advertising, and I was a business student. So she kind of like connected the dots and was like, oh, advertising is like the perfect intersection of like creative and business. And I got into like an art direction role. From there, they didn't like give me a return offer my senior year, so I graduated and I didn't have a job. And then what did I do? I was like, oh, I want to like create. I know how to create content, but I don't have anything to like show for it. I had a lot of pictures on there, but like obviously pictures on Instagram 2 years ago, even 2 years ago, like nothing was happening with that. And I just like really wanted to do it for a job, kind of like I just wanted to do it so I could show I was like knowledgeable in like social media. But then it kind of like turned into like just really fun, and like I didn't even get any of my jobs through doing like content. But I was like, I started on TikTok. What is it, like back last September, making like random videos. I just make like 3 a day about random stuff, because like that's what everyone tells you to do. And then it wasn't even like about photo or anything creative, really. It was just like a bunch of random stuff that I thought was interesting. And then I like kind of did one that was creative. It was a video where I was like talking about things that weren't photoshopped, and it was the first one I did, and it did pretty well. And from there, I like really loved that style of video, and I was like, this is like a perfect intersection. So then I kind of went down that rabbit hole of like inspiration content. And then from there, I was like, another thing was like, I want to like show people who I am. So then I started my like uncurated thoughts videos where I would just talk about random stuff that I think is interesting as like a creative person. And yeah, that's kind of like my story.
Yeah, and for those in the audience who don't know, Ethan makes a lot of content where he not only reviews other artists that are compelling and have almost obscure ways of creating their art, but he also describes the process by which they make their art and basically reveals a number of fantastic multidisciplinary artists around the world to us on Instagram, apart from your own creative endeavors as well on your reels. I know you have that one pinned where you have that stop motion of, I believe it is the New Balance shoe collection. It could be Reebok. Those two brands get mixed up in my mind. But you do have that one pinned. And so not only are you able to very competently describe other artists, and I think you found a niche in that content, but you're also really good at making your own, I'd say.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
The content is fun.
I noticed looking at your work that oftentimes you are the model, which is interesting. Because you know, a lot of photographers such as myself, I hate being on the other end of the camera. So it seems like you embrace it. How did that come about? Was it just kind of like, hey, I have this idea that I want to do. There's nobody around, so I guess I'm just gonna have to record myself. Is that how it kind of came about?
Yeah, I think it was that. Also, I don't know. For me, I don't really like. I did start out in like portrait photography, but for me, it was never something that I like did a lot of. I think it comes from what you're saying. Like, I'm kind of like scared to like hire people to do shoots with models. I think it's a bit of a thing for me where I just like making things by myself. That's why I like street photography. But also like I would make these things like after working, like my job, and then I would just like need a film, and I'm not gonna like use my dad to like model for me. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to do it myself, and for that shoe one, like I'm a size 9.5, and it didn't really like cross my mind to do anyone else because it was like my size. But I don't know. I think it just comes from a place of like I just like doing things solo, and I just enjoy the process of doing it. I don't think it's that I don't want to work with other people. I think it's just like something that I enjoy doing because it makes me happy.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because we're actually going to be doing an episode on how to become a portrait photographer as an introvert. Not necessarily saying you are an introvert, you may be, but it's the being nervous and approaching a model and like learning how to do that. We're actually going to do an entire episode on that. So thank you for giving me a segue into a plug for our show.
Yeah.
But you mentioned you do portrait photography, you do street photography. I also see that you do landscape photography and other types of photography. Do you find that one form of discipline, like so for instance, I shoot street photography and I shoot portraits myself. I tend to scout locations while I'm shooting street to take a model to later. Do you find that there's like some kind of cross pollination of different genres that help you out? Like I'm doing something in this one genre that's going to help me out in this other genre that I shoot as well. Do you find that is how it works for you as well?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, I think I do the same thing. Like, where I find locations either way, like portraits or street, then I want to come back and like do something else. Like maybe not even portraits for me. Maybe just like doing a video, like the content I make where I just put myself in front of the camera type of video. But yeah, definitely. Like I think I maybe similar to y'all. I just like doing a bunch of different types of photography because I think it like helps with any facet of being creative, and it's also just really fun to just try new things. Let me think of it if I have any examples. I think for me, like portrait photography helped me uh be like confident in like taking concert pictures. I think for me, concert pictures are so much like I'm able to turn my brain off because you don't have to like interact with anyone really. You're the person's like performing and you're just taking pictures of them. And I think that's what I enjoy about concert is like I don't have to like work with models. I'm not yeah like I think it might come from like the introverted point you're talking about. Um, but yeah, I think that it has helped me uh, do concert photography.
You are listening to the F11 Photography Podcast.
Yeah, I love how we just segued from street photography to portrait photography, and then you saying that portrait photography helps with your event photography, your concert photography, and this is what I love about you and your work is you are so openly and expressively a multidisciplinary photographer, artist, videographer, and content creator at the same time, and it's funny because you went into marketing, you trained under this marketing guy, and the number one thing any marketer will tell you if you want to become big in any creative discipline is niche down, find your hole and just keep digging to China, But it seems, Ethan, that you have somehow managed to escape that rabbit hole of creativity and have found a way to so fluidly move from one genre of photography to the other, as well as different genres of creativity, like videography. You in the last couple of years, you won an award for a short film you made, and we can talk about that later. But the question I want to ask here is you talk about shedding limitations creatively, the barriers that not only that you put on yourself, but that maybe society puts on you. And so in your work, when it comes to working creatively, what was the progression to reaching this kind of ideal of, I don't need to worry about what this needs to be, what the work at hand needs to be. If it's street photography, sure. If it's portrait photography, sure. Like you seem to traverse these genres so easily in your own mind.
Um, I would say, yeah, it's a hard question because I think I look at my content now and it's like kind of like a niche because I would say I make two types of videos. I make inspiration videos and I make videos where I just like talk about random stuff that I think will resonate with people. But then I do a lot. I also do a lot of experimenting with like other types of videos where I know like people really don't follow me for that, and I don't really care to be honest. Um, but I think the niche part for me, it just kind of came from like being like a business student that like never really like I don't yeah I guess it's like the cliche like I didn't really fit in because I was a creative guy, right? Um,
Right.
and that's kind of like what it was for me. And I felt like I never fit those like types of careers, like banking, consulting, tech. That was really never something I was interested in doing. And then I think it kind of translated to how I thought as a creative. Like this was something that I was doing just for expression and just for fun, and I didn't really care about like what for me it was like an escape, right? And it was never I didn't really think of it as a career back in college because I was just trying to like get out of the mindset of like being a business person. um and that's like where it stemmed from, this idea of I don't want to I don't want to do this business thing for the rest of my life, so like let me just step away and try other things and like see what I like to do. I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up in. Like honestly, like talking to a lot of people that want to be content creators or like they want to be creative, like even in my industry where they want to like switch from one role to another role that's creative. They're like, how do I do it? Because I don't know where to start, and like I want to do this thing, but like what if I do it wrong? I think for me, the part that I never really, or I the barrier for me was like the creating part is like the part that once I started just making random shit that like I just thought was interesting, regardless of like if I knew how to do it or not. Like I would just make it, whether that be doing concert photos, like making collages, doing portraits, street photography, video making videos. I'll just like do it because I was interested in it, and I would just post it because I thought someone would like it. And I think for me, it kind of just came like this. The audience I have kind of just came from the addition of all of these random things I was doing that like kind of inspired the thought process that I had. Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but
No, that's good. That's good. Now, the term content creator, I always like, I'm not saying that you go around saying you're a content creator. I think it actually says digital creator on your page, but I always take issue with the term content creator because I find that it's just too broad. It's like it doesn't really define what you do. Like Kim Kardashian's a content creator in a way, right? Like, or it's like I don't look at what you do and think that's anything similar to what she does. I don't know. I find what are your thoughts on that term? Because to me, it sounds like a buzzword that's created by social media companies. I don't know. That's always been my take on that term, content creator. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, I mean, I understand that for sure. Like, I had a video where I like was talking about a bunch of different titles, and I was like, oh, because I was like, I didn't really know what I was. Like you were saying, like I do a bunch of different stuff. Like I was like, oh, am I a photographer, videographer, cinematographer, design? Because I also do some like collages. Am I a designer, or am I like a content creator? And I think it is. I think it's like, especially for filmmakers, it's a bit tough, right? Because you could be a content creator, but like you have so many other skills that are specific to filmmaking and like photography that regular content creators like don't have. And I think it's kind of like this weird disconnect where if you tell someone you are that, and then they're like, oh, they place you in that Kim Kardashian box, right? But then you're not. You're like you do so many other things. I think for sure, I like what you're saying. It's a tough thing, and I think I and recently I've been broadening it because I think that the term content creator is like one. I guess it's kind of like a huge category that surrounds a lot of different people that make different things. I think I would classify content creators as people that just make stuff. And then below that is like, oh, filmmaker, photographer, right? And I for me, I try to place them in like two different boxes, in my mind at least.
Yeah, it's something I had to wrap my head around because I'm older than both of you, definitely by a long shot. So I started college in 1999. I took the 5-year route. I graduated in 2004, but that's still 1 year before Facebook launched. So when I went to college, you were a photographer because that's what you were. The word content creator didn't exist because the place where content creation happens now didn't exist. There was no Instagram. There was no Facebook. So it was like, I've always had this mentality of, well, no, I'm a photographer and I want to present myself as such. So people go, oh, well, he's a professional photographer. That must mean that he knows about framing, composition, all this stuff, like how to use an exposure triangle. Like that's how I want to present myself. And so I find that what kind of threw me off, though, is I would start seeing people who are just photographers refer to themselves as content creators, and then they would try to make these clever YouTube videos or not YouTube videos, like Instagram Reels and stuff like that, talking about their photography. So it took me a while to wrap my head around that whole world, but it's just, to me, my takeaway, having existed in this industry in a world before it happened and now seeing it as it happened, is just like, Yeah, that term is just a bit too broad for me because it just doesn't really define what you actually do. It could be a lot of things, right? A photographer could be, photographers create content. Kim Kardashian creates content. Ethan Tran creates content, but it doesn't really hone in on what, I don't know. I've always just been like, hey, let's be a little more specific than that term. I like digital creator, like you put on there, but at least we kind of have a little bit. At least it's like, okay, I think I know where he's going with this. So,
the ironic thing is, a lot of people do put content creator on their Instagram handles, and it's just like, okay, they're a budding videographer. They're trying to do, the social media game. And it's like, that's kind of a subject that we all just dance around, that we have in the back of our heads as people who do make content, whether it be photography, videography, or anything in between and outside of. But that being said, you recently blew up in the social media game, and a lot of that work came from your time in Austin, having recently moved to New York. I want to ask, do you notice a difference in the inspiration with the change of your backdrop, changing from Austin to New York? Are you noticing that your inspiration is different? Do you feel compelled to make different work because of the move, or is it more so just like access to bigger and better work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I don't really know yet, because I've only been here I moved in July 1st, so it's been like a month and a couple of days, and I think most of my time has just been like kind of like exploring the city and like thinking about things, obviously, but and just setting up stuff. Like, I just got this desk yesterday or 2 days ago.
Nice.
I spent the whole day like making a desk, and usually in Austin I would like spend a whole day making content or whatever it may be. So it's, for me, it's just been kind of like, I'm settling for now. Like I'm settling in, and also going to a lot of, there's so many events here. Like yesterday, went out with a friend of mine, and we like went to this fashion pop-up thing, and he told me that there was like these other events that, like, he told me that there was an event going on at night, and then this other guy that I also met there, he like told me that there was another event. Like, there's like so many random events going on here, and it's kind of like a lot different than Austin. Like, Austin is like, you have this one event you're going to go to, whether it be a concert or like a party, and here it's like you have so much stuff to do. And I think for me right now, it's just kind of like meeting a lot of different people. Whereas in Austin, I didn't really, I was like, I went to college in Austin. I grew up in Austin. So it was very different in terms of like people that I knew, because I was a business student and I didn't have many connections to like the filmmaking world back in Austin. It's kind of like all from social media, like how I met you, Brandon.
Yeah.
And then we ended up meeting at like a coffee shop randomly.
I remember that in passing at Epoch on 53rd Street.
Yeah, very good coffee shop. Yeah, and then that's actually I don't know, this is like random, but I've met basically all the creative people from online I've met there, which is so funny. It's like the spot for creative people, I guess.
On the subject of New York City, I know what you're talking about with there just being an overwhelming amount of culture shock there, because you just get there and it's like so different. I went there for a conference years ago, and I had a friend she was a doctor, and she like lived in this tiny little place in Greenwich Village with about like 3 or 4 other doctors. That's how expensive it was. But their life was like, they would go to work 9 to 5, and then at 5 they would nap until like 10 p.m. or something like that, and they would just go out all night and go to these events. It's like, we're gonna go to this rooftop party in Brooklyn. I'm like, it's a Tuesday. I'm like, yeah. They're and you go there and the rooftop party's packed. There's like, you go to the next floor and it was like some guy who worked for Henson Productions and made like all the puppets for like Sesame Street. And you're just like, what is going on here? Like, there's just so many like crazy creative stuff out there. And like, I remember I went to some random club and I heard music, like this electronic music that was like, I could tell, because I used to make electronic music myself. I was like, this is going to be coming out soon. Like, this is going to be what's big soon. And so he's just like really on the cutting edge and forefront of culture and arts. And so I guess that's my thing is I was only there for a week and I was just like blown away by how much I saw. So I can't imagine. You've already been there for a month. You must have seen some things where you're like, oh wow, this is really gonna. I mean, you're getting acclimated, you're getting settled, but I think if you start exploring around a bit more, you're gonna start seeing that, oh my gosh, the amount of avenues that are available here are insane.
Yeah, it is really crazy. Like, you just walk around and like see some random thing, but I think. Yeah, that's interesting. You're like, you did music as well, being in the filmmaking scene. Yeah, I think for me, like, the thing I've been just learning is like, or the thing I like about this area is you just meet so many people, and I'm able to like, I'm trying to like write more, just about random stuff, and like journaling more. And I think here is an interesting place to do it because you like do something crazy and then you just want to like relax and just write. And I think here there's a lot of places where you can just sit down and like be kind of like a fly on the wall and like do nothing and no one cares. I think that's something I enjoy about here is like you can walk around and not feel like, if you walk in Austin, you're not going to see a lot of people. If you walk here, you're going to just see people all the time, which is like interesting.
Hey, this is Vanessa Joy, and you're listening to the F11 Photography Podcast.
You seem to have a really great innate ability to reflect and to give valuable time to introspection. And I definitely see that reflected in your work. You touch on a lot of cultural proverbs in the Western world in your reels. One of your reels is titled, "Difficult Isn't Always Better." And of course, we do live in a society where we think that the means justify the end, and that if you were working hard, then the end product must be more valuable, even if the end product is of something very simple and very ordinary. Now, I love that. I love that you say that you're journaling, because that's great for this next question. Is what guides the formation of these sort of reels, this sort of content where you challenge like large overarching cultural norms? Is this something where you're reading stoic philosophers, or or is this like shower thoughts come to fruition? Because a lot of these are really important topics, and sometimes it feels like topics you address in your reels, you're saying what we're all thinking, but like no one's actually given it the time to blossom in their own mind.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it comes from consuming a lot of media, and like over the years having just like my own thoughts about it, because I feel like as photographers, you're always trying. It's hard, like as photographers, you always like want to have a following, because in the end it means like more business, right? Right. And I think it kind of like reaches this level of is this really what I want to make, or is this something that I'm making because I want to do XYZ thing and like grow my personal business or whatever it may be. And I think for me, a lot of like the stuff that I like isn't this, or a lot of the like photos stuff I like isn't the stuff that does well. It's just always the random stuff that I just take, like street photography or landscapes, things like that, just for fun, and like it makes me really happy. The difficult isn't always better thing. That one, a lot of my videos come from a number of people, and I think there's a lot of people that talk similar things. Like Rick Rubin is a big inspiration for me, but I think for him, he's in a bit of a different space. He's in the creative space, but he's in music, he's in culture, he's in like production. Whereas obviously like with filmmaking and photography, it's like a different space than music, right? Like we're not making songs really. I'm not saying you can, but like that's not the space that filmmakers' heads are in. And I think his thoughts like evoke this perspective for me on like content creation, because they're very tangential with what they align with. Like that difficult, it isn't always a better one. It came from one of these like short little quotes he had, or it wasn't a quote, it was like, it's kind of a long quote, where he was talking about how like you can do, it was a really long-winded quote, but it was basically talking about how, let me see how to phrase this. You can do this, you can keep trying to like get better at something, and you can keep trying to get better at one thing, like whether it's photography or videography. And if you keep trying, it does, you can like do a lot of projects, and while you think you're getting better, like maybe it might make you realize that the thing you did in the beginning was like something that you actually want to keep doing. But now that you've done all these other things, it's kind of like, informing you on what you don't want to do. And he was talking about music. But I think, so I'm saying this all to say that like for me, there's like a lot of people that inspire me. And I think what I take from them is like putting my own perspective on these topics, in a way that is like digestible to my audience, like filmmakers or photographers, or like just me as a person. Because I feel like there's a lot of overlap within that space.
Yeah, I like what you said about, I like what you talked about with the quote where sometimes when you're pursuing a single discipline, it just starts to feel like stacking bricks. And what you really enjoyed about that discipline was really what you were doing when you started. And so I wanted to ask, as a content creator with a large audience and a lot of discipline, a lot of different multidisciplinary talents, do you feel the pressure to create content that performs over content that you want to make? And I think you touched upon this because, you're a business major, but you're also creative, and you might wrestle within yourself those two topics. And so I wanted to know, like, what are your thoughts on catering to your audience versus doing what you want to do, because you're not always going to make the content that resonates with your audience?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a difficult thing, for sure, mixing the two. I think it's kind of like working out, right? You have to put in the reps, whether you like it or not, and do the content that performs. And I'm not saying that I don't enjoy. I really enjoy the content I make that does perform well, but obviously there's times where like, oh, I don't want to make this type of video, but I know I need to make one because it's kind of just like lifting weights, right? You got to like just keep doing it. But I also do like experimenting with videos that I know won't do well because I just want to make them. And I think the beauty of having an audience is that, like, regardless of what you make, people are going to watch it. And I think it kind of like, it's a cool space to be in, because back then I would be getting like, I don't know, like 500 to 1,000 views on a video that does poorly. But now I'm getting like 30 to 40,000 views on a video that is like quote unquote performing poorly. And I think like that switch off in my mind is like, this is like really crazy that this many people are watching something that isn't deemed as like a bending the algorithm type of thing, right? And it's like, but that's literally what I want. I mean, that's like the whole goal of gaining a following, is to like be able to create what you want to create, without having the bounds of like anything, any algorithms. Yeah, and I say all this because I one of the things like you're saying is I'm multidisciplinary, and one of the things I love doing is just like making random stuff, and I think that's part of who I am as a person, and part of the reason why I like creating random stuff. I know there are a lot of people that don't they don't want to like if they do one video that does poorly and like it's not their formula, they're just gonna like, I don't know what they're gonna do. They're gonna go crazy. I don't know. I'm not that type of person. I like just making random stuff that I know won't perform well because I want to make it.
Well, the motto of this show as we close every episode is chase light, not algorithms. So that, and I've seen some of your content that more or less addresses that. And, you know, it's a necessary evil sometimes. Like I have a YouTube channel myself where I do reviews on photography equipment, but then I also do tips, techniques, and tutorials. And my gear reviews always do way better than my tips, tutorials, and techniques. I could give somebody 5 tips that could possibly transform their life as a photographer, and those videos always do poorly. Always. But if I go, here's a review of the latest Viltrox 75mm 1.2 third-party lens for the Fuji X mount, that's gonna just blow up because everybody thinks that the equipment is what gets them to the promised land as opposed to the idea, which of course, as you know, is totally wrong. Like it's totally backwards. It's not the equipment. You do need a good vehicle to get you somewhere, but even if you have a busted up vehicle, if you're a good driver, you can still get it to where you want to get it. So, but you know, I relate to you on that level for sure on those algorithms. But it's like a necessary evil, and I look at it as the trade-off is, okay, you do a video that maybe you're just kind of meh on and it blows up, it bends the algorithm, but that pulls up the stuff you want people to see. So you reference that, oh, you may only get 30 or 40,000 views. Well, that is the population of people who attend a Yankees game. And you think about filling up an entire stadium full of Yankees fans, and then that's how many people saw your video that didn't perform as well, but it's the one you're super proud of. And that's still a great accomplishment, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that also the beauty in that is like the videos that you want to do, you should just do them, because like if one person watches that video and they can take the value from that video, or like they see that you put in a different like type of effort, or it portrays who you are as a person more, it could lead to like them emailing you or like saying something, or literally like it could lead to opportunities that you don't even know are there because you're making something that you want to make. And if you're just like making the same video that you know will do well, it might, people not, or that same person might not like that type of content, or that might not resonate with them. And yeah, like, I don't know. It's just, it's an interesting thing to battle as like creators. But it's something that I feel like people worry too much about, because I think in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. But I also want to bring up something ironic about this algorithm talk we're talking about, is that my video on like the artist versus the algorithm, that has like, it has like 4 million views, but it's literally the video that has gotten me the most like obviously most views, but also most followers, which is really ironic because the video is literally about how I don't care about algorithms, but it's a video that got me the most followers, which is funny.
Hey, this is Doss Miller, and you're listening to the F11 Photography Podcast.
You're dogging on the algorithm, you're praising the creativity, and yet that video gets pushed. And that is, I think that pretty much sums up all the content that's doing well right now. I know a lot of companies across the world are favoring UGC as opposed to like $40,000 budgeted ads shot in 8K and then like, you know, rendered out at 1080p for the viewer's screen. But it's interesting talking about social media and everything, and and how you interact with your audience and creating a space on social media. And it very much seems that you create a space in the metaverse, in the creative metaverse, that is very much at your pace, especially in a world where we're all used to content creators and influencers kind of developing a sense of urgency in what they're creating. It's fast, it's sudden, it's immediate, it's go, 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 and it almost borders hustle culture. And yet over at Ethan Uncurated, we've got a very just like, not lackadaisical, but just very much at your pace. It's easygoing, and it's honestly, it's a nice change of pace. But that being said, I did want to ask, as we're talking about algorithms, do you adhere to the algorithm? Do you have like a process for uploading? Is there like a time of day? Like how strictly do you adhere to all the protocols of the Instagram algorithm?
I mean, I don't like have a time where I post, to be honest, but I will say, like, I think there's a level of like strategic thinking within it that you have to just do. I think the algorithm part for me is more like the type of content you create rather than like the actual, like posting once a day. Like, I think it's important to like have a presence if you want to do content as like a career, because obviously like if that's your livelihood, then you need to do it. But if it's something that you're just doing for fun and you just want to see where it goes, like it's not really that serious of a thing. Because like for me, I was like creating, like I think Brandon, like I was creating stuff for like years and nothing was happening, and then randomly like they just start like pushing my stuff for I don't know what reason, and I was always doing the same thing, but like I don't know, it was just like some random change that happened that it like just took off.
It's interesting because that's something I did notice in your creation, in your time in Austin, Texas. You definitely voiced in your stories again something that we're all thinking, just how ridiculous and just tedious it was to get any sort of traction on social media despite your best honest efforts, because the quality of your work was great years ago, and it's continued to be great, and it's always been consistent and truthful and honest, and I think that's beautiful, and I think it's something that is important to touch upon, especially for other people, because as photographers, meeting other photographers, there's always a conversation that comes up. It's, oh, I'm not just a photographer now. I have to be the real guy, the content creator, and I'm trying to get a TikTok presence just so that I can get my stuff known. Because while you'll never be able to, surpass networking and going to mixers and parties and creative events, the next best thing I think is getting your stuff out there. And so, you've done the grind, and you've gotten to that place. And so I wanted to ask, in the ever-growing realm of your metaphysical presence online, has that changed the way you view yourself as a part of the creative world, or is it kind of just, well, actually, I'll let you answer that. Like, how have you, has your opinion of yourself in the creative space online changed over the last couple of years?
I would say like at a base level, I don't think so. Like, I think it's just really weird for me when I'm meeting other creators. Cause I think I'm still like the same person. I think I like to be the same person. But it's just like, it is pretty weird. Like, I think being in the space is really cool. And I think the audience that I have is really interesting. But yeah, it is like a little bit weird knowing like people watch my stuff. Like yesterday I was at a restaurant and like the waiter, he like came up to me, he's like, "Are you Ethan Tran?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like older than me, and it was interesting. But he was like, "Oh, I love your stuff." I'm like, and I asked him what he did. He said he was an illustrator, and that my stuff like helps him get out of like slumps or things like that. And I think that was really is like a weird thing, because I don't think about, like, I think having an interaction in person is so different than getting a comment or getting a DM. Those real moments are, I think, is what is changing my mindset a bit. Not so much like the followers or like the comments, I would say. Yeah, but one thing I am realizing on that topic is that since I'm like in this mindset of writing a lot, journaling a lot, I'm kind of like removing myself from the photography aspect of my life that was so prominent. And I think being here made me realize that, and I kind of want to like get that back, taking more pictures, because at heart that's like who I am. And I think creating content has kind of made me lose sight of that a bit, because like you're saying, it's always like about what you're creating next and like what performs well. And in general, that's just like never what photography is. So I think that mindset shift is a thing for sure, and something that has been a little bit detrimental to like my thought process as a creative since being a content creator.
Well, it all comes full circle to the final question of the day, which is, why are you in New York, and what are you setting out to achieve? Why did you make this journey, and what does the future hold for Ethan Tran?
I'm here for work. It's just like the broad thing. Like my company, I work in advertising as an art director, and my company wanted me to move in the summer, so that's what kind of happened. But I think on a different level, I wanted to come here to meet people, and here is where there's a lot of just interesting people, a lot of creators, a lot of like filmmakers and photographers that I wanted to meet, or just be like in that community. And I think that's a big reason why I came here, to like experience that, see what it's like, because I grew up in Austin. I spent a lot of my time there. I like went to college there. And I just wanted a change of pace. I was also living at home like before coming here. So I kind of wanted to just like be independent in a sense. And yeah, I think that's my goal here, to just, my baseline goal is just to meet people, and like see what and learn. I guess like, yeah, meet people and like learn from them is like the main thing. And I think everything else will come, like the creative part will come with time and with meeting more people. But yeah, I don't really think, like, I feel like a lot of people move out here to create something crazy. That might change in my mind as I spend more time here. But for me right now, it's kind of just like, I moved here because I wanted to meet people. Because honestly, like, creating content here is so much harder than it is in Austin. Because like there's like, you go on the street and there's like people walking around, and I'm just scared that people are gonna take my camera gear or whatever it may be, right? And in Austin, you can just film wherever and no one's gonna do anything. And there's so much more space, and like it's a bit quieter. So in that sense, it's kind of like, why did I move here? And in my mind, it's a bit of a thing I'm thinking about. But yeah, I think for the people, for sure.
Right on, man. Well, thank you for joining us today, Mr. Ethan Tran. We're going to put links in the description of this podcast to all of his social media, website. Thanks for coming out. I'll end the call, but we'll keep in touch on everything.
Thank you so much, Ethan.
Yeah, y'all. Thanks for having me on as well.
Have a great rest of your day in New York, my brother. We thank each and every one of you for listening today. Ethan was an awesome guest. That's why we had to give him that round of applause. Follow us on F11pod.com. That's the website. You can do F11pod on Instagram. You can do that on Twitter. We thank each and every one of you. Check us out. And until next time, chase light and not algorithms.
Thank you for listening to today's episode.
For more information about this podcast, go to www.f11pod.com.